Berlin. Now, Michael Callahan has had a lot of experience when it comes to dealing with beavers. He's the president of Beaver Solutions, a company that specializes in resolving human-beaver conflicts. And he's in Northampton, Massachusetts. Good morning.
Good morning, Anna Maria.
How long have you been resolving beaver-human conflicts?
Started on a volunteer basis in 1998 and started Beaver Solutions as a business and gave up my medical career eventually in the year 2000.
What do you think of what you just heard?
Well, it sounds like a huge and serious problem as far as beavers burrowing into the levees. Certainly we've seen in the United States the catastrophic results of levees breaking down in New Orleans. And while it certainly doesn't sound like there's that size of a human population here, nevertheless there are 20,000 people whose lives and properties depend on these levees. So it's clearly a very important issue to protect them from being flooded.
Have you heard of a situation like that before?
Actually, no, certainly nothing to that extent. I've experienced similar issues where beavers burrowing into dams or rail beds, things like that, but to that extent, no, where 77 kilometers of the 172 kilometers being affected, that's a vast issue.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of trouble then. Why do you think they would be going after these levees? What do you think's behind that?
It sounds as if the primary reason beavers are burrowing into those levees is to escape floodwaters. Now, man has changed the normal flood patterns by building those levees, and it sounds like on a regular basis the water level rises to the point where the beaver lodges that they live in, that they've constructed in the surrounding wetlands, get inundated with water. And beavers, being mammals, needing air to survive, need to escape those flooded homes, and that's when they will burrow into the levees.
What are the biggest challenges for the Germans then in handling a problem like that?
The scale of it is what strikes me as a biggest issue. In order to monitor that length of levee system from burrowing, because these burrows are started underneath the water, so it's not like you can easily spot them. And my understanding is that in one town, at least, they're installing a galvanized metal grating along the levees to stop burrowing into them. So certainly that's an option, although clearly a vast and expensive undertaking.
Now, because you do resolve human-beaver conflicts, what kinds of conflicts have you confronted? You haven't seen something on this scale, but what have you been able to do, and what do you think you could do for these people living on the Oder River?
What we deal primarily with is protecting roads and infrastructure from flooding. Beavers love to plug up road culverts, and we have fabulous success protecting those from beaver damming, as well as controlling pond levels from causing people flooding problems when beavers build freestanding beaver dams. So those are the primary types of issues that we are confronted with. The situation in Germany is certainly different, but one interesting possible solution is, since this burrowing issue seems to be primarily related just to the flooding events, creating an alternative for the beavers to burrowing during those flooding events would potentially resolve this issue. And my understanding is they're trying what they call a wildlife rescue hills. Mm-hmm. They've constructed 2 wildlife rescue hills in an attempt to draw the beavers into there for temporary respite from the flooding waters, rather than their needing to burrow into the levees. Kind of
like a flood shelter.
Exactly. And there is some evidence that this may work, because beavers have been known to habitate man-made structures before. I would think that's their best option, because that could create a long-term solution at a much lower cost than armoring the entire levee system.
And of course, some angry Germans want to see them caught and killed. How realistic is doing that?
Yeah, certainly that can be done, but in our experience, it's a very short-term solution. We sometimes have to trap where there's just no tolerance for beavers, but we find that new beavers move in very shortly. Beavers are territorial, and nature hates a vacuum, so if you remove beavers from a certain area, beavers from the surrounding areas will find that habitat and move in. So typically, killing or trapping beavers in our experience only works for 6 months to a year or two, and then you're right back where you started.
In the end, who's really to blame for this problem, the beavers or the Germans?
Humans and beavers have a lot in common. We are the two species that tend to modify our habitats for our own needs. Humans did that here on the Oder River by building these levees in order to build homes and other things in the floodplain. And now beavers are trying to escape the floodwaters created by the human levees in part. But beavers will modify their habitat because they're so well adapted to the water that they like things flooded.
They're going to have to work with the beavers because there's nothing else to do.
In my experience, it's always better to work with nature than against it. You tend to have longer-lasting solutions, less costly solutions. So the more that they can adapt and create solutions that are working with the beavers, the better. Because despite these problems, beavers have huge benefits to the environment and also indirectly to man. They're a keystone species that's important to keep them on the landscape. And so finding that balance is an important thing, and that's what we try to do at Beaver Solutions.
You like them, don't you?
I do. I certainly acknowledge that they can cause serious problems for people, but it's very rewarding personally to be able to solve those problems for people but keep the beavers in the landscape.
Fascinating. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
Thank you, Anna Maria.
That is Michael Callahan. He's the president of Beaver Solutions in Northampton, Massachusetts.